Alright, hello everyone, and thanks for joining us here tonight for this ghost trivia. Just a heads up, we are running often on about a 5-second delay or so just to make you aware, if there's a slight lag, that's why. If you start to experience a lag on your end, try refreshing the YouTube live stream, and that should help sort some things out. So first off, this trivia was inspired by the age-old holiday pastime of gathering together to tell ghost stories at Christmas time. Most of the tales here take the form of short stories because they were created with the purpose of telling them around the fire after a Christmas dinner, and no one wants to do a whole novel in that format. I will say that since the term Winter's Tale or Ghost's Tale was used to refer to all creatures supernatural and not strictly ghosts as we understand the term, some of these questions will be outside of our understanding of ghosts in today's terminology. So there's some other creatures that we'll visit in these questions as well. I've also created a list of all of the works referenced in these questions and answers, so if anything catches your attention that you haven't read before and you'd like to go back and read it, I will upload a PDF of that reading list to the events page on our calendar, so you can take a look at that. So we have 3 rounds of 10 questions each, and you will see the questions in CrowdPurr, and you'll hear me reading them out loud in the YouTube stream. Between each round, we will take a look at the rankings of all of our players and see how everybody's doing. The first question in the first round is just a practice question, so there will be no points for anything that you answer in that one. Starting with question 2, we will have points, and there will be 15 seconds 15 seconds to answer the question, and you will get 10 points immediately, and the longer the time goes on, the fewer points you will get. And be sure that you lock in with the right answer, because once you lock in, you cannot change your answer. So you want to make sure that you get the right one right away. Read all the options first, and then go ahead and proceed with locking in that answer. So let's see, we will get started with question 1 in just a moment here. Alright, I will read the question first, and then the points will start counting down, time will start counting down once I complete reading that. Alright, so question 1. Alright, The Dead by James Joyce is part of which short story collection? Is that Dubliners, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, Finnegan's Wake, or Ulysses? Alright, looks like we got a lot of the right answers there. That is from Dubliners. That is the short story collection that features the dead. And I've got a little image here from, this is actually the a live adaptation of The Dead that happened in Dublin a few years ago, in which the audience got to mingle with the cast and then participate in a feast that was part of the Christmas dinner in the story. The funny thing was that the tickets ranged from $300 up to $1,000 for premium seating, which is kind of against the whole point of the story of the dead, which was focusing on the lower middle class and their recovery from the Great Famine. So it seemed to miss the mark a little bit. And if you are familiar with the story The Dead, and you're thinking, that's not a ghost story, there are no ghosts that appear in there, You are correct, but James Joyce himself called it a story of ghosts because he was referring to the collective memory of the country and the things that they are haunted by, as well as individual memories that the people are haunted by as well. So it has a lot to do with the Great Famine, and that ghost is very present, as well as the memory of Michael Fury and others. All right, we will move on to question 2, and here the points will start counting. All right, which of the following is not an adaptation of The Turn of the Screw? Is that The Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, The Turn of the Key, or The Others? Alright, I've got the answers coming in here. Looks like we're kind of mixed right now. Alright, the answer to that is Midnight Mass. That is an original show that premiered on Netflix just a few months ago. It was created by the same director, producer, writer of Bly Manor, and The Turn of the Screw is a very heavily adapted text throughout history, and this is a prime example of the form used in many holiday ghost stories. The events themselves do not take place at Christmas time necessarily, but there is a framing device where the narrator is sharing stories at Christmas, and then they tell the reader stories that were shared with them in this Christmas time atmosphere. Alright, we will go on to question 3. Which popular Christmas song makes reference to the tradition of telling ghost stories? Is that Deck the Halls, the 12 Days of Christmas, Jingle Bells, or It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year? Couple seconds left. Okay, the answer to that one is It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year. And I did have an image of the lyrics for that one, but they are missing right now, unfortunately. But it's a line about sharing ghost stories and past Christmas glories. Alright, number 4. Smee in A.M. Burrage's tale of the same name is a variation of which game? Is that Tag, Musical Chairs, Hide and Seek, or Red Rover? And that GIF has absolutely nothing to do with the question or our theme for the night, the story, but how could I not use Smee? It just had to be there. Alright, the answer to that is Hide and Seek. Smee is a shorthand version of It's Me, as people are found and you have to identify the seeker by calling them Smee. Here's a picture of an old-fashioned children's hide-and-seek game there. Alright, question 5. The link to which pagan celebration plays a large part in why ghostly mythology is popular at Christmas? Is that Candlemas, Samhain, Beltane, or Yule? I think everybody's getting that one, it looks like. We've got mostly correct answers there. Alright, and that is Yule. You'll all be familiar with the Yule log that is traditionally used at Christmas time. Yule is also known as the winter solstice, which is the darkest day of the year, and that's considered by many the time when the dead have the most access to the living. So that is why these stories began at that time. Alright, so we're going to take a quick peek now at the leaderboard after the first 5 questions. So we've got first place is Beef and Potato. Second place we've got Tina, and then third place is Cassiphus. So great job. Beef and Potato is well ahead of the rest of the pack here right now. So great job. Okay, we will now move on to question number 6. Which era's obsession with all things to do with death and the occult repopularized the ancient tradition from the Druids and the winter solstice of the winter Christmas ghost story, particularly due to a certain well-known author? Was that the Victorian Age, the Elizabethan Age, the Jacobean, or the Regency period? Got a couple seconds left right now, and that is the Victorian Age. They were, as I said, obsessed with all things to do with the occult, so there's an image here of a seance. Table turnings were very popular as well. And the first picture here that I have shown with the frogs is a prime example of the very strange Victorian Christmas cards that were popular at the time. A lot of them just make no sense whatsoever, and this one has one frog murdering another and robbing him. So you'll see some more of these Christmas cards pop up throughout the game, ones that I just thought were very entertaining. And let's see, so moving on to question 7. Speaking of the very popular author that I mentioned that helped reinvigorate the Christmas ghost story, that was Charles Dickens, of course. In A Christmas Carol, how many ghosts visit Scrooge? Is that 4, 2, 5, or 3 ghosts? And sorry, you don't get any bonus points if you get all the names of those ghosts correct, too. Alright, that is 4 ghosts. First, he is visited by Jacob Marley, then the ghost of Christmas Past, then the ghost of Christmas Present, and the ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. And here's a picture of the ghost of Christmas Present. Okay, question number 8. In Dickens' The Christmas Tree, the narrator shares a series of ghostly stories. In one, a man sees what turns out to be the ghost of his cousin in the road. He's surprised to see the cousin because the cousin resides in which city? Was that New York, Paris, Bombay, or London? Dickens is most well known for a Christmas story, a Christmas Carol, I'm sorry, but he actually wrote a number of Christmas and ghost stories, including this Christmas Tree. So the answer to that one was Bombay. The speaker of the tale sees his cousin in the middle of the road in London and is curious as to when he arrived from Bombay, and it turns out the cousin actually died in Bombay, and it is his ghost appearing in front of him. Here's a little picture of the town center and city center in Bombay and their Christmas tree. All right, question number 9. In John Berwick Harwood's Horror, A True Tale, why is Rosa uprooted from her old bedroom to stay in the Room of Horrors that leads to the ruination of her entire life? Was that because her room is being used to care for the attacked ewes? She's recently married and stays in a room with her husband. Her godmother unexpectedly attends the Christmas party and takes over the room. Or she thought it would be fun to stay in the spooky room after listening to ghost stories all night. Okay, that is because her godmother unexpectedly attends the Christmas party and takes over the room. There were ewes attacked. That was the first creepy instance in the story. They did tell ghost stories, but she certainly did not think it would be fun to stay in the creepy room that had stories told for decades about it. But her godmother displaced her, and she was being polite by giving up her room to the elderly lady with a large fortune. And yeah, just this gif here from Ghost Adventures was very fitting for this question, since there is a creepy supernatural creature in the bed with her. So, like, don't cuddle with me, man. Alright, question number 10. This is the final one of the first round, and then we'll take a look at the scores going into round 2. In M.R. James's seminal story, A Whistle and I'll Come to You, My Lad, what does the creature who responds to the whistle use to take corporeal form? Is that bedclothes, curtains, a burlap bag, or a tablecloth? Alright, a few more seconds here. And that answer is bedclothes. Here's a image from one of the printings of the story of the creature using the bedclothes to attack the speaker, who almost falls out the window at one point. And just to add on to the discussion of M.R. James, there is a new collection of his works coming out towards the end of January that's called M.R. James Ghost Stories. So of course the library has ordered a copy and you can place your holds on it. I'm excited to read that one. Alright, so the end of round 1. Let's take a look at these. Alright, Beef and Potato is still in first place with 38 points. Sarah H. has come from behind with 24 points now. Cassifus is in third with 21. So we've got some good rankings here so far. Great job, everybody. I will be able to move everyone automatically over into the next round, so your screen should refresh. If you do not end up seeing round 2, let me know. Alright. Is anyone seeing the round 2? Screen. Okay, so yeah, mine is showing me what you guys are seeing. Not sure why round 2 is not, so bear with me just a moment here and we'll see what's going on. Okay. Erica, who is in the chat, is our tech guru here, so she is coming to assist me. But in the meantime, we were having some fun earlier today that we have a lot of stories about how the library here is haunted. There's, going back many, many years before my time, people have talked about the various hauntings, and just as I was coming downstairs for the night to get ready for this ghost trivia, as I walked by the elevator, the doors opened by themselves with no one inside, and that's just one of the things that always seems to happen at night here, which is why many, many folks believe the library is haunted. Does anybody else have any stories in the chat about hauntings that you guys have experienced, or are your places of employment creepy and ghost-filled as well? I have to say, the Amy knows. She's experienced it all. Alright, we're gonna get this sorted in just a moment. Thanks for your patience, everybody. book bags fell from the top shelf. That's so creepy. There was one night when I heard books fall right off the top shelf of one of the bookcases here, but there was no patrons anywhere near the bookcase, so it seemed like they might have been pushed somehow. There's all kinds of weird stories here. Okay. Okay, so it looks like there was some sort of issue with the players. Not only was the screen frozen on the leaderboard, but we also didn't have everybody pushed. But now, looks like we've got everybody. Alright, great. So I think everybody should be seeing question 1. Do you see question 1 now? I'll go ahead and get started if anybody's seeing that one, but okay. With which weapons did Jeremy Lester and his murderer duel in A Strange Christmas Game by J.H. Riddell? Was it rapiers, swords, pistols, or there was no duel in this story? Alright, I know I've got answers coming in, so I'm glad to see. Looks like everybody got pushed to the next round finally. We got it sorted. Thank you, Erica, for saving me there. Okay, so the answer to that question is rapiers. There was indeed a duel, but before the official beginning of the duel, a certain character went ahead and just thrust his rapier into the chest of Jeremy Lester, killing him, which is not the sportsmanlike way of performing a duel. Alright, question number 2. Who is the owner of the kit bag of the title in Algernon Blackwood's short story? Is that Mrs. Monks, Arthur Wilbraham, Johnson, or John Turk? Who was the owner of the kit bag that was received? Alright, that answer is John Turk. John Turk is actually the murderer that Johnson's law firm was involved in a trial with. And in a pretty big oops, Johnson's employer sends him the bag that is evidence from the trial that Turk's victim was stored in after being cut up, rather than his own personal bag that he was going to loan. Alright, question number 3. What is the name of the narrator's love in Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven? Is that Taylor, Lenore, Eleanor, or Isidore? What is the name of the narrator's lost love? A few more seconds left, and that is Lenore. She passed away, and he's haunted by her memory. And I've got an image here of a first edition of Poe's Raven with the original paper wrappings that was sold at Sotheby's almost exactly 2 years ago to the day. And that was estimated to bring $120,000 to $180,000, and it actually ended up selling for $312,500. That is quite a pricey first edition print there. Okay, we will move on to question number 4. Krampus is a demon whose legend derives from which mountainous region? Which mountain region does Krampus come from? Is that the Andes, the Rockies, the Alps, or the Balkans? Okay, I see everybody's answers coming in quickly here. Couple more seconds, and that is from the Alps. Here we've got some more greeting cards that say Grüß von Krampus, which is greetings from Krampus in German there, so I didn't want the German to give away the Alps, but it's a legend from Austria, Germany, Liechtenstein, that area. It's a creepy demon who steals away children who have been naughty. It's one way of getting children to behave in those areas, I guess. A little more than coal. Alright, question 5. Which of the following The Nightmare Before Christmas characters is a ghost? Is the ghost Sally, the mayor of Halloween Town, Zero, or Oogie Boogie? I have friends who have watched this movie every month for the last decade or more, whenever. I mean, it's been well over a decade since it came out. People are quite obsessed with this one. Okay, the answer to that one is Zero. Zero is Jack Skellington's dog, who is a ghost. Okay, question number 6. Which of these classic supernatural tales did not take place in the dead of winter? Got some Jon Snow imagery there to show just quite how cold all of these stories are. Is that Beowulf, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, Frankenstein, or Sir Gawain and the Green Knight? Which one is not winter related? Couple more seconds. And that one is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So The Legend of Sleepy Hollow has references to leaves changing color and falling, so it very clearly puts it in the autumn, which is a major reason it's become associated so closely with Halloween. However, Washington Irving did write a number of other Christmas-related stories, but just not spooky ones. Okay, question 7 in round 2. In the recent film, The Green Knight, so we're going back to the setting in that question, the last question, sorry. Which character Gawain meets during his Christmas-time adventure turns out to be a ghost? Is that Lady Winifred, the Green Knight, Essel, or the Scavenger? Which of those characters turns out to be a ghost? Alright, that is Lady Winifred. So she is missing her head. It has been severed from her body while she was in bed and thrown into I believe it was a lake. And Gawain has to retrieve the head for her to put her ghost at peace. That film is actually re-released in theaters right now for the Christmas season, so if you didn't get to see it in the summer when it originally came out, you can have a chance to go see it now. Lady Winifred actually does not appear in the original poem of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, but Gawain does come across a well named for the saint, which is what inspired this whole part of the film. So fun notes there. Question number 8. In E.F. Benson's Between the Lights, E.F. Benson's Between the Lights features Everard and his guide making their way down a slope into the land the guide has been trying to avoid. What surrounds them on their way down, making it impossible to see the way? The guide knew very clearly why he wanted to avoid this area and tried to convince Everard to take a different route. Is that mist, snow, rain, or a swarm of insects that surrounds them and blocks any of their visibility? They end up coming across some otherworldly creatures that Everard is convinced are going to kill him. Alright, that is the mist they are surrounded by. It's so thick they can't see anything. So here's a picture of Scotland full of mist. This is where the story does take place, is the Scottish Isles. So it would not look unlike this image right here. Alright, question number 9. Sir Andrew Caldecott's Christmas Reunion has which other Christmas ghost story author's work provide an interesting twist at the end? So there's a reference to this other very well-known ghost story author. Is that A.M. Burrage, Charles Dickens, Algernon Blackwood, or M.R. James? That is M.R. James. The story was part of a short story collection called Not Exactly Ghosts, and it's kind of based on the same idea as James Joyce's The Dead, going back to the very first question, that referencing that people are haunted by more than just literal spirits of dead people. So it is the ideas that haunt them and their actions that haunt them as well. Okay, moving on to the final question of round 2, and then we will take a look at the rankings again. Okay, which characters, going back to the previous question of Christmas Reunion, which character from It's a Wonderful Life is itself a variation on A Christmas Carol, shares a name with the main character in Christmas Reunion? So which character shares a name? Is that Henry Potter, George Bailey, Clarence Oddbody, or Mary Bailey? Their first name is shared with one of the main characters in Christmas Reunion. That is Clarence Oddbody. Clarence is the father in Christmas Reunion, who yells at his spoiled children for complaining about not having gifts that are as expensive as the year before from their family friend. And that, of course, Clarence Oddbody in It's a Wonderful Life is the angel that takes George Bailey on a tour of his life. Okay, so for round 2, our rankings are Beef and Potato still coming in strong with 47 points. Christmas Future has taken over second place in this round. And Cassifus is standing strong at third place with 35 points. Okay, and then let's go ahead and look at the multi-game rankings. So no surprise, Beef and Potatoes in first place overall with 85 points. And Cassifus holds on to second place with 56 points, and Sarah H has 55, so neck and neck for second and third place there. Okay, we will move on to round 3, and fingers crossed it all goes a little smoother this time and everybody transfers over there right away. Alright, it looks like I'm seeing 9 players, which is what we had, so I think that's everybody. If you are not transferred, let me know. Okay, we will go ahead and get started with number 1 in round 3. This will be our final round for the evening. Alright, who wrote The Festival, in which a man goes mad after participating in an underground ritual of Yuletide worship his family helped found centuries earlier? So who wrote this story, The Festival? Is that Richard Matheson, Stephen King, H.P. Lovecraft, or Shirley Jackson? Curious as to whether anyone's read The Festival, even if they are a fan of the rest of this author's work. Okay, so that answer is H.P. Lovecraft. And here we've got a little picture of Cthulhu, and no, he does not appear in the story of The Festival, but you can't really talk about Lovecraft and find a better image than something of Cthulhu. So we want to share that. Okay. Move on to question number 2 here. In Elizabeth Gaskell's The Old Nurse's Tale, the man who captured the hearts of both Furnival sisters was employed by in their father's household in which way? What was his profession? Was he a cook, a musician, a gardener, or a butler? So this man had both of his sisters fall in love with him, and then he secretly married and had a child with one of them. And that is a musician. He was the piano teacher for them. And of course, once it was discovered that he was secretly married one of the daughters, who was well above his economic station, he was fired, and the sister and her child were cast out. Alright. Oh, and I see from the previous question, Cassandra says, I haven't read it, but the presence of madness was what made me guess Lovecraft. Exactly. That is a key theme in much of Lovecraft's work. So even if you don't know the story itself, any knowledge of Lovecraft does tend to lead you to that answer. Alright, question number 3. What is the name of the hotel in Stephen King's The Shining? A story very full of ghosts and all kinds of other evil things. Is that the Overside, the Stanley, the Overlook, or the Winterlook? What is the name of the hotel in The Shining? This is the fictional hotel in the book. Keep that in mind. Alright, the answer to that is the Overlook. And you can see it there in the picture, and then here is the Stanley Hotel, which was the real-life inspiration for the Overlook. The Stanley is supposedly haunted. There's been many stories over the years about that one, and interestingly enough, just a couple of weeks ago we had an author visit with Gus Moreno and here at the Dundee Library, and he talked about a writer's workshop that he did staying at the Stanley Hotel, and he agreed that there was definitely an uncanny atmosphere there, and he had some really fun stories to tell about that. Alright, question number 4. Who dies at the very end of The Woman in Black? You might have seen the movie, even if you haven't read the book. Either one, very good stories. Is that Alice Drablow, Jeanette Humphrey, Arthur Kipps, or Stella and Joseph Kipps? Who dies at the end of the story? Alright, we've got a few more seconds here. Okay, that is Stella and Joseph Kipps. Stella is the protagonist, Arthur's wife, and Joseph is their child. Jeanette Humphrey is actually the woman in black herself, and Arthur sees her again at the end of the story right before his family dies. And here's just another fun picture of a Victorian Christmas card. That was one of my favorite ones. That the gout and rheumatism are sending their compliments of the season, attacking this poor gentleman there. It's just the strangest things that they would share on these cards, and I love it. Alright, question number 5. The novel Blank in the Bardo is set in a winter cemetery and features a whole cast of ghostly characters trapped between death and rebirth. So, who is in the Bardo? Is that Jefferson, Lincoln, Washington, or Kennedy? So clearly this is a president, and it's inspired by a true story, not the actual events that take place in this ghost book, but that is Lincoln in the Bardo. It was based on the historical events following the death of Lincoln's son Willie, who was 11 when he died. This was within around the first year of the Civil War. And Lincoln was said to go to the tomb every night for some time to hold his son's body in his arms. The man was devastated and an absolute wreck after his son's loss. If you are a fan of audiobooks, I would highly recommend this audiobook. It has over 150 different narrators in it doing all of the ghosts and different characters. It features George Saunders, the author himself, his friends and family, as well as actors and musicians and other authors. It's just a really, really fun and entertaining audiobook, so well produced. Alright, we'll move on to question 6. In The Canterville Ghost by Oscar Wilde, where do the minister and his family who take up residence in Canterville Chase come from? Where does the family originate? Is that America, Germany, Northern England, or Ireland? And I will say the Canterville Ghost is not a winter story, but I love Oscar Wilde, so I just wanted to include his ghost story, even though it's not strictly on theme. Alright, we've got a few more seconds left, and that answer is America. The minister and his family come from America, and they are as part of the New World, too sophisticated to believe in ghosts. And even once they have proof of the ghosts, they are too New World and modern to be scared of it, so they end up terrorizing the ghost instead of the other way around, and it's really entertaining. And in my preparation for this trivia, I came across a movie that was filmed of the Canterville Ghost starring Patrick Stewart and Neve Campbell. I'm not sure how this one was off my radar for so many years, but judging from that poster, it looks pretty cheesy, and that's very exciting to me. This one is actually on Hoopla, so you can use your library card to download it tonight if you want to give it a try. Alright, we will go ahead to question number 7 now. Which indigenous folk monster, having an insatiable appetite for human flesh, is often associated with winter? So, do any of you know your indigenous folklore? Is that the Uktena, the Wendigo, the Skinwalker, or the Ogopogo, also called the Naitaka? And I am so sorry for probably butchering the pronunciation of some of these. Alright. Got everybody coming in here. There's some... looks like everybody got that one right, I think. That is the Wendigo. Here's a creepy rendering of that monster. So it's sometimes described as a gaunt skeleton who's been disinterred from the ground, and other times it's just described as being made of ice. But according to some legends, the Wendigo is created anytime a person turns to cannibalism to survive in the wild, and that's why it's so closely associated with winter, because both indigenous folk and settlers would have a hard time surviving in those cold and icy, snowy winters in all of North America. And they would starve to death in the bitter cold, and oftentimes it would happen that people would turn to cannibalism. Algernon Blackwood, who we had a story from earlier in the game, also wrote a short story called The Wendigo, which takes place in the Canadian wilderness. Alright, moving on to question number 8. In the saga, The People of the Floy describes a Yuletide feast interrupted by a knock at the door, with great horrors to follow. Which country does the saga originate? Is that Iceland, Sweden, Denmark, or Norway? Where does the People of the Floy originate? I have to say, this is one that I was not familiar with this exact story until recently, so I'm curious if any of you have read this one. Alright, that is Iceland. In the story, there's a knock at the door, and every time someone goes to answer it, they are driven mad, and then they end up outside and lose their lives. And the next day, all of the people who went mad and died become revenants and come back and attack the hall. It's a pretty creepy, gruesome story. This all happens at the Yuletide feast. Iceland has some other really interesting folklore as well, and there's a picture here of their Christmas cat. And the Christmas cat story is a all about how if children do not receive new clothes before Christmas to wear on Christmas Eve, the Christmas cat will come and eat them. So you better hope you get some new clothes from your parents, otherwise you're gone. Alright, question number 9. We're approaching the end of the game here. Who are the winter ghosts that Freddy interacts with in Kate Moss's novel of the same name? So he interacts with a whole series of ghosts during the story. And who are they? Is it Freddy's family? French World War I soldiers? Madame and Monsieur Gally? Or the villagers of Knoll? Alright, lock in those answers. If anyone hasn't read this one, it's a really good book. This is a really beautiful and depressing book at the same time. Alright, that answer is the villagers of Knoll. They were the last remaining Cathar community in that area of France who were persecuted for their religious beliefs, a specific sect of their religion, and ended up locked into an ice cave here. Well, not an ice cave, a cave that was full of ice in the winter. Different than an actual ice cave as you would find in Antarctica. This was just a mountainous cave full of ice that they are entombed inside, and the whole village is eradicated. Okay, we will move on to question number 10. This is the final one, and then we'll see who ended up taking the whole game. Okay. Hans Christian Andersen adapted an old tale in which a dying girl sees the ghost of her loving grandmother. What is the young girl out selling that aids her in this vision? If you're familiar with the title definitely gives away what she is selling. Alright, is that mulled wine, silk ribbons, matchsticks, or flowers? What is this poor girl shivering in the cold selling? Looks like we've got most people getting that answer right. Looks like a lot of you are familiar with this story. That is matchsticks. So she is selling matchsticks, and every time she strikes a match, the light shows her a vision of something else. That is a pleasant, comforting vision when she's freezing out in the cold there. And eventually she sees her grandmother and uses up all her matchsticks until she is reunited with her grandmother and ends up freezing to death in reality because it is so cold, and her body's found the next morning on New Year's Day. Very grim tale, very depressing. Okay, so that is it for our game, and I really appreciate you all coming. I hope everybody had a great time. Let's see, for this round, we've got Christmas Future. Okay, Beef and Potato dropped down in this round. Christmas Future got 37 points. Nearly Headless Nick was 33. And then Beef and Potato got 32. So one round they did not take the lead in. Alright, and then the grand reveal of our overall winner is Beef and Potato. So they managed to hold on to the overall lead, even with dropping down a few spots in round 3. Cassifus comes in second with 87, and Christmas Future at 85. Very close one there for second and third place, so well done everybody. And thanks a lot for playing again. And as I mentioned before, I will go ahead and now upload that reading list if anybody is interested in the stories and films that were discussed here tonight. So that'll be on our calendar event page. Didn't want to do it earlier because there would be a lot of spoilers and answers on there, so I will do that as soon as we're done with this. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your evening. Thanks so much for joining us.